reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable.
And this should have been done by Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
But couldn't Putin just withdraw his...
He's a friend of
today?
CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore.
Karoline, Leavitt, and Kaitlan Collins are at it again, and this time, sparks are flying hotter than ever. The tension between these two has been simmering since Karoline took the role of White House press secretary, with each fiery exchange seeing her come out on top. But their latest showdown has been so intense, it's leaving people wondering, how does Kaitlan still have a seat at the table? What exactly did Karoline say that left Collins stumbling over her words live on TV? And could this be the moment that shatters whatever's left of Collins' credibility? Stick around, because this face-off is one you won't want to miss. In the past few weeks, Karoline Leavitt has been trading barbs with CNN's Kaitlan Collins, and the media has been buzzing nonstop. But their most recent clash triggered a firestorm so intense, it could probably use its own disaster response team. Here's how it all started. Collins, never one to back down, thought she had Leavitt cornered with a seemingly simple question.
Which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus. Many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the president questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
At first glance, it looked innocent enough, but make no mistake, this was a trap, a setup, a calculated attempt to land a gotcha moment. Kaitlan wasn't just asking a question, she was laying the perfect ambush, hoping to expose a contradiction in the Trump camp. She had that smug grin, that confident stance, convinced she had the upper hand. But here's the thing. Karoline Leavitt is no rookie. She's a political heavyweight who saw this coming a mile away. Instead of falling into the trap, she flipped the script on Collins, and it was masterful. Not only did she dodge the setup, but she turned the tables, leaving Kaitlan scrambling. Karoline's statement that access to the Oval Office isn't an entitlement for journalists wasn't just a jab. It was a mic drop moment, a textbook masterclass in controlling the narrative. Kaitlan didn't even know what hit her. Listen closely to this clip.
The question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is.
Denied her precious gotcha moment, Kaitlan dropped the act. She confessed that the whole point of her question was to use the Associated Press's so-called ban from the Oval Office as a weapon. She wanted to paint the Trump administration as hypocrites, defenders of the First Amendment who suddenly got cold feet once in power. Classic media spin, but Karoline wasn't about to let Collins rewrite the story. With calm, razor-sharp precision, she reminded everyone that she had promised to hold the media accountable for their lies, distortions, and propaganda. And part of that accountability meant ensuring outlets like the AP didn't get free rein to the most powerful office in the world. She made it clear, press freedom doesn't mean freedom from consequences. Just like that, Kaitlan's so-called expose turned into another self-inflicted disaster. But did Kaitlan learn her lesson? Of course not. She's back, squaring off with none other than Donald Trump himself.
Mr. President, you won the White House in part because of high inflation. If your tariffs make prices go up...
Excuse me, we haven't asked you to speak yet, please. Right?
But this time, Trump wasn't having it. He shut her down, not because she was assertive, but because she crossed the line into outright disrespect. This is his office now, and he decides who gets the floor and when. If he doesn't call on you, you don't get to hijack the moment. Simple as that. But instead of playing by the rules like the other journalists in the room, Kaitlan tried to bulldoze her way through. Trump wasn't silencing the press. He was maintaining order and giving space to other reporters to ask their questions. The smartest move for Kaitlan? Wait her turn like a professional. But of course, patience isn't exactly CNN's strong suit. Trump wasn't done with her yet. He took a shot while responding to a question about Mitch McConnell, just to remind her who's really in charge.
K. Jr. as the next health secretary, citing conspiracy theories. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I feel sorry for Mitch. And I was one of the people that he wanted to go to the end and he wanted to stay leader. He's not equipped mentally. He wasn't equipped 10 years ago mentally, in my opinion. He'd let the Republican Party go to hell. If I didn't come along, the Republican Party wouldn't even exist right now. Mitch McConnell never really had it. He had an ability to raise money because of his position as leader, which anybody could do. You could do it even, and that's saying a lot.
Trump knows how to deliver a burn. And this one was savage. With a few quick jabs, he had Kaitlan scrambling for a comeback that never came. Then came the knockout punch. He locked eyes with her and casually declared that she was just as incompetent as Mitch McConnell. The room froze. The weight of that insult hit like a ton of bricks. Kaitlan had walked in thinking she could steer the conversation, but instead, she was publicly dismantled. This wasn't just a casual dig. It was a calculated strike that exposed her bias, her flimsy arguments, and her failed attempts at playing hardball. This wasn't just a press conference, it was a lesson in power dynamics, and Kaitlan Collins learned it the hard way. But Trump wasn't finished yet.
This should have been done by Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
But couldn't Putin just withdraw his
He's a friend of
today?
CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore, because they have no credibility.
Let's be real. This isn't Trump's first showdown with CNN. His battles with the network go way back. And if there's one thing he's perfected, it's exposing their bias in real time. Remember Jim Acosta, the so-called journalist who became infamous for interrupting Trump and grandstanding? Trump revoked his White House credentials after one too many outbursts, and now Kaitlan Collins is following in Acosta's footsteps. Same network, same tactics, same humiliating result. Trump has never shied away from calling out CNN's antics, and every encounter only highlights their desperation to trip him up. Time after time, they fail. Why? Because while CNN is gunning for gotcha moments, Trump is playing for the win. Take this infamous exchange between Trump and Kaitlan.
When they went to the Capitol and they were breaking into the Capitol, smashing windows, injuring police officers, why did it take you 3 hours to tell them to go home?
I don't believe it did. Oh, let me pull it out. I have to pull it out. So if you look at on January 5th, the day before, I said, please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. Stay peaceful. This was the day before, and this was in the form of Twitter. Now use Truth Social. I think it's far superior, okay?
He asserted his authority, calling out her disrespect and lack of preparation. This is the Trump the media refuses to acknowledge, the one who pulls out receipts, shoving them right in Kaitlan's face, proving her and the entire woke media machine wrong. For years, they've peddled the same tired narrative, that Trump incited his supporters to storm the Capitol and destroy democracy. They painted him as a power-hungry tyrant, a so-called dictator in waiting. But here's the truth they can't stomach. Trump called for peace. He told his supporters to stop and respect law enforcement. And now, with hard evidence backing him up, he's tearing down the media's manufactured lies one by one.
I hope everybody's on Truth. If you look January 6th, this is before 2:30. I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. This is right after, as it was happening. But what happened is they took it down. I don't know why. I think they took it down because it was so good. They didn't like it being up there. I am asking, and we didn't know until I got it back, because now I have 90 million people waiting for me to go back, but I'm on Truth and I'm staying on Truth. Listen, I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violation. We want no violation. We want no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. That was at 2:30.
The journalists who spent years smearing him are now scrambling to twist the facts and craft yet another false narrative. but even with undeniable evidence right in front of them, they just can't stop. To the woke media, it was never about the truth. It was about controlling public perception. This is the same media that spent years censoring stories that didn't fit their agenda, gaslighting the public, and spreading fiction over fact.
Why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them?
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
you
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Now, with Trump standing his ground and challenging their lies with irrefutable proof, they're freaking out. Meanwhile, Leavitt is still having a field day at Kaitlan's expense. And let's face it, Karoline's on the money. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If that's true, the left and the woke media must be completely out of their minds. They keep setting the same traps, twisting words, and taking things out of context. Convinced that this time, Trump or his team will finally crack. Every single time, it's a total letdown.
The historic proposal for the United States to take over Gaza, announced by President Trump last night, underscores this commitment. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. President Trump is an outside-of-the-box thinker and a visionary leader who solves problems that many others, especially in this city, claim are unsolvable.
But do they learn from it? Nope. They double down, recycle the same tired tactics, and somehow think they'll get a different result. It's like watching a bad magician perform the same trick over and over, hoping the audience won't catch on. They roll out their big exposés, drop their bombshell reports, and just when they think they've got him, bam! Trump or Leavitt smacks them down with facts, logic, and an ironclad ability to handle the media frenzy. At this point, it's not even a fair fight. It's like watching a toddler try to take on a heavyweight boxer and getting knocked out cold every time. But hey, let them keep trying. If history's taught us anything, it's that the left is better at losing than they are at realizing they're losing. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. See you in the next episode.